We've all seen it happen. Some buff guy starts a fight with the more experienced fighter, thinking that being more muscular will help them knock out their opponent in a fist combat. After all, the more their muscle mass, the more impact and damage to their opponent. Five-time world's strongest man, Mariusz Pudzianowski, was a beast in the gym. Then he challenged Tim Sylvia. Then there was Greg Kovac, a bodybuilding behemoth who resembled the perfect comic book villain. But he chose to step into the cage with smaller and more agile opponents. What happens when Dustin Poirier, a UFC champion, faces off against Brian Shaw, a four-time world's strongest man? When put to the test against Shaw, it was a classic showdown of skill versus strength. Dustin Poirier, standing at 5 feet 9 inches and weighing 155 pounds, is known for his striking accuracy. On the other hand, Brian Shaw stands tall at 6 feet 8 inches and weighs over 440 pounds, boasting immense strength. It all kicked off with Poirier guiding Shaw through striking drills, showcasing his expertise and agility. But the real test began during their grappling exchange. Poirier, with his extensive MMA background, aimed to push Shaw into submission holds. However, Shaw's immense size and strength presented challenges. At one point, Shaw's weight advantage was obvious as he managed to position himself on top, making it difficult for Poirier to breathe. Despite the difference in size, Poirier's experience shone through. He skillfully wrestled Shaw into a painful position, making him tap out quickly. And if there's anything we can learn from this encounter, it's that while strength is a formidable asset, speed, technique, and experience play even more important roles in combat scenarios. Bob Sapp was also a monster. 6 feet 5 inches, 370 pounds of pure muscle, aggression, and power. He wasn't just a bodybuilder, he was an athlete, a former NFL player. Sapp had already made a name for himself by destroying K1 legend Ernesto Hoost, proving that his size and power weren't to be underrated. But the smaller Cro Cop wasn't just any fighter, he was a tactical assassin. His famous phrase, right leg, hospital, left leg, cemetery, was not just hype. It was a truth he brought to life in the merciless maulings he inflicted on his opponents. The fight was a classic David versus Goliath matchup. The enormous, aggressive mammoth against the calm, technical sniper. Everyone expected Sapp to win. It was almost impossible to imagine a huge war machine like him falling victim to the Croatian underdog, but that was exactly what happened. The bell rang. As expected, Sapp charged forward like a freight train, swinging wildly. If he landed one blow, just one, it would be lights out for Cro Cop. But Cro Cop wasn't there to be hit. He sidestepped, controlled the distance, and picked his shots. Instead of trading punches, he let Sapp burn himself out, waiting for the perfect moment. Then, it happened. Cro Cop landed a clean left straight to Sapp's face. The punch shattered Sapp's orbital bone instantly. The pain was unbearable. Sapp, the giant who had destroyed giants, screamed and collapsed, clutching his eye. He didn't even attempt to fight back. It was over. Bob Sapp was never the same after that night. The invincible aura he had built came crashing like a pack of cards. He continued fighting, but the losses piled up, and he became more of a spectacle than a serious competitor. Meanwhile, Cro Cop went on to dominate everyone, solidifying his legacy as one of the most feared strikers in combat sports history. When a 5-time world's strongest man steps into the cage against a former UFC heavyweight champion, you expect fireworks. But what unfolded on May 21st, 2010, was a brutal lesson in the unforgiving world of mixed martial arts. Mariusz Pudzianowski, a Polish powerhouse renowned for his dominance in strongman competitions, had recently come into the MMA. With 2 small victories under his belt, he was eager to test his might against top-tier opponents. Enter Tim Sylvia, with a resume boasting 2 UFC heavyweight championship reigns. Sylvia's experience in the octagon was vast, making this fight a classic tale of strength versus skill. Was Mariusz going to show once again that strength was everything? Could Tim prevail against the strongman? From the beginning of the fight, Pudzianowski tried to leverage his immense strength, aiming for takedowns to bring Sylvia to the mat. However, Sylvia's experience shone through as he used his reach advantage, keeping Pudzianowski at bay with jabs and maintaining distance. As the fight progressed, Pudzianowski began to show signs of fatigue, a common issue for athletes switching from strength sports to MMA due to the different cardio demands. Sylvia used this to his advantage, increasing his strikes and further wearing down his opponent. In the second round, Sylvia's consistent striking led to Pudzianowski's exhaustion. The big man couldn't parry and weave as fast anymore. Unable to defend himself well, Pudzianowski tapped out due to strikes at 1:43 of the second round, resulting in a technical knockout TKO victory for Sylvia. This is Bob Sapp again. At 6 feet 5 inches and 350 pounds, Sapp was a walking spectacle of muscle and might. A former football player and bodybuilder, he had transitioned to MMA with a reputation for being an unstoppable force. His size alone was enough to intimidate most opponents. But beneath the surface, Sapp was still a novice in the world of mixed martial arts, relying heavily on his physical gifts rather than technical skill. Nogueira was a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and one of the most skilled fighters in the sport. He had already carved out a legacy as a fighter who could endure the worst and come back stronger. At a height of 6 feet 3 inches, weighing 240 pounds, Nogueira was way smaller than Sapp. When the fight began, it seemed like Sapp's power might be too much. He pushed Nogueira against the ropes, landing thunderous blows that would have knocked out a lesser man. The sheer force of Sapp's strikes was crazy, and the audience wondered if Nogueira could survive. But soon, Sapp began to tire out, and that was when Big Nog went on the attack. On the mat, Nogueira was a magician. Sapp, for all his strength, was like a fish out of water. He had no answer for Nogueira, who rained down punches and elbows, softening Sapp up for a submission. This time, there was no escape. Nogueira got him into an armbar. Sapp tried to resist, but his energy was spent. Nogueira tightened the hold, and this time, Sapp had no choice but to tap. The fight was over. Bradley Martin is a titan in the world of fitness and social media, standing at 6 feet 3 inches and weighing around 260 pounds of pure muscle. His Instagram and YouTube channels are filled with jaw-dropping displays of strength, deadlifting insane amounts of weight and performing muscle-ups. But note this, Bradley isn't a fighter. He's never fully trained in martial arts, and his experience with combat sports is limited to watching UFC pay-per-views and maybe shadowboxing in front of a mirror. But that hasn't stopped him from boasting about being able to destroy anyone in a fight. This wasn't an ordinary boast. Bradley continuously fought with BJJ practitioners, and the results were always the same. Whether it was a seasoned black belt or a scrappy purple belt, the same story played out. Bradley would start strong, using his size and strength to try and impose his will. But inevitably, the BJJ fighter would find a way to control the situation. They'd sweep, pass guard, and make Bradley tap out and submit. Time and time again. He challenged a Nelk security guard. He tapped out. He's even thrown out challenges to professional fighters like UFC fighter Marlon Vera, suggesting that his size and strength could give him an edge. But if his fights with experienced fighters are anything to go by, we already know how it will turn out. There are numerous examples, but what do they all have in common? They were all mistaken. They think because they can deadlift 500 pounds, they hit like a truck. But punching power isn't just about strength. It's about speed, technique, and precision. A 140-pound kickboxer can generate more knockout power than a 250-pound bodybuilder whose knowledge of martial arts only includes barbells and dumbbells. They wrongfully assume their thick necks and massive chests will help them absorb punches. But fighting isn't about absorbing hits. It's also about avoiding them. One clean shot to the jaw, and even the biggest guys will crumble like a house of cards. They think because they bench 3 plates, they can overpower anyone in a matter of seconds. But grappling isn't about brute strength, it's about leverage, positioning, and control. That's why a small 160-pound BJJ black belt can choke out guys twice their size like it's absolutely nothing. In the gym, conditioning isn't quite the same as endurance. Spending hours lifting weights doesn't mean they have the stamina for a fight. After all, fighting is a whole different level of cardio. After just 1 minute of swinging and struggling, their arms feel like concrete, their legs turn to jelly, and they're gasping for air. Meanwhile, the more experienced opponent is just getting started. And these lessons are always learned the hard way. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a deep dive into the wildest moments in combat sports. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.